Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, welcome. This is Sandy Reese. It is Project SmartSprout time. We are here today to talk a little bit about mindset. This is one of your 2 webinars a month, and I am delighted to have one of our SmartSprout coaches with us today, the wonderful Whitney Bishop. Whitney's going to be bringing us a really awesome presentation called The 3 Lies You Need to Stop Believing and the Truth About What's Possible. I think that mindset is key to fundraising. I have said for years that I think mindset is about 90% of your success in fundraising. I can teach you how to go ask for money. I can teach you how to do newsletters, but if you don't think you can, if you're believing something that's holding you back, then guess what? You're not going to be successful. So that's one of the reasons why I felt like this was so important to bring Whitney in. So before we begin, let me just do a real quick tech check. If you guys would just type in the question box and let me know if you can hear me okay and you can see. You should be able to see Whitney's slide. It's nice and yellow and pink and orange and blue. It says Mind Over Matter. So if you can hear and see, would you just type in and let me know that? I don't want to go too far down this road if we've got any issues. All right, perfect. A couple of you are letting me know all is well. Thank you so much. All right, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Whitney and let her rock us out this afternoon about mindset. Whitney, you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with you and love the group that Sandy has put together to help instill the confidence and give you the skills and tools that you need to raise a lot of money to do a lot of good in the world, and that is a wonderful thing. I'm Whitney Bishop, one of the SmartSprout coaches. My focus is mindset, and I am the Chief Change Agent for the Nonprofit Leaders Network, where we help nonprofit leaders master their mindset, make over their meetings, transform their trainings so that they can make a bigger difference in the world. And mindset, as Sandy mentioned, is a big part of any successful, mission-driven, heart-driven person is really getting a hold of the thoughts, beliefs, and attitudes that are driving their work. So one of the things that I want to let you know is a little bit about why I am the one talking to you about this. I have been a nonprofit staff member. I've been a volunteer, a board member, a board chair. I was executive director for 5 years for a small asset building coalition in southern Indiana, where we provided tax prep and free credit counseling and financial education for low and moderate income families. And I was the only employee of that organization with a board that was a real learning experience for me, and have long been a champion for the nonprofit leader. Those have always been the people who I have looked up to and admired and thought, wow, they're making a big difference in the world. So I'm here in service of you to support your growth, your expansion, and the success of your organizations. And that's the background that I am coming to the table with. I also would like to extend some invitations to you as we begin this webinar today. These are the core invitations that I extend, and I invite you to take these invitations for yourself and for your groups and for the work that you do. The first is to be curious, not critical. And throughout the course of this presentation, you may hear some things that make you think, I don't know about that. You might want to get a little critical about it. And I would say just allow that to be and switch to a curious mindset, and that'll help a lot. That's an open way of being. Next is to assume positive intent. And that is a great invitation to accept and receive and extend as often as possible. Be fully present. So to the best of your ability, there's a worksheet that we'll be moving through, and a lot of great content. So I hope you have an opportunity to be fully present here. Be generous with your questions, with your contributions, with your participation. Anything that I can answer for you, anything you'd like to contribute about your experiences are welcome here. And so please be generous with your feedback. And then finally, ask for what you need. If you need me to slow down or to speed up, I think I am looking at the question box here and can see that. So if there's something that I can do to make this a more meaningful experience for you, then I'm all about it. And Sandy, if I miss something, if you'll help me catch it, then you're a pretty good wing person. I really love that about you. So,
well, let me jump in and tell you. Go ahead and put your presentation in the I guess it's the slideshow view.
I have it in that on. That's what I see. Hold
There
on,
you
let's
go.
see.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now I think we
better?
just needed to get you to move through those slides so we can see those invitations. I think that'll work.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Sandy. See,
that's what I'm here for.
we got to help each other out. That's how we go. That's how we do it. All right. So if everybody feels ready to move forward, type in the question box there, ready to go, I'm ready, and we will move on to the next piece. All right. So mind over matter, the 3 lies you need to stop believing and the truth about what's possible. So the first lie, give you a little drum roll, that you don't have enough time. How many times have you said that to yourself? Maybe today, even. And hold on, I think it just flipped again, didn't it? So I don't have enough time is the first lie that we're going to be addressing today. The second lie, we don't have enough money. Now you're probably saying, hold on a second, Whitney, we are resource constrained and we don't have enough money. We need more. But there is a little bit of a flip to this that you might not be thinking about. And so we'll talk a little bit about how that lie, we don't have enough money, impacts your ability to have greater impact for your organization.
Hey, Whitney.
And the third lie, yeah.
For some reason, the slides are not advancing. So I know you've got slides on these things, and we're not seeing them. We're still seeing the invitation slide.
Oh man, and they're moving through on mine. That's so strange.
Yeah, they're not moving through on ours. So I'm not sure if maybe you need to.
So are you still seeing invitations?
No, now I see all 24 slides.
Okay, so that's what I had just done. So it's moving. It looks like there's a delay. So I'm wondering, and thanks for that feedback. So are you still seeing all 24?
Yep.
Okay, so let's see if now, what do you see?
Still seeing all 24.
Huh, well, that must mean that there's some kind of a delay because what I'm seeing and what's happening there is different.
Okay, I see the first slide now.
Okay. And what do you see now?
Nothing changed. Still see the first slide.
Yeah, so there's a significant delay happening with these, it looks like. So, Sandy, what do you think our best course of action would be?
I wonder if as you go along, like right now I see all your slides that are kind of in a line on the left. I think if you literally will click on the slide when you're talking about it, it seems to be advancing it.
Okay, so now do you see invitations?
Yes, so I think you're going to have to do it that way to literally click on the slides on the left in order to get it to move.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you very much. I apologize for the inconvenience for those of you who are here. And so is it big enough?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. So invitations. So the first lie, I don't have enough time. Are you seeing that slide, Sandy?
Yes.
Wonderful. Second slide, we don't have enough money.
Yes.
All right. I think we found our solution.
You got Teamwork. It now. Roll with it.
All right. And now I don't have the energy. So these are the 3 lies that we tell ourselves on a daily basis as nonprofit leaders, paid or volunteer. And I want to encourage you to think about what kinds of questions you're asking yourself when you believe these 3 lies. And so if you all would be so kind as to type in the question box maybe one or two of you, what are the kinds of questions that you're asking yourself when you believe those three lies? I don't have enough time, we don't have enough money, I don't have enough energy. And Sandy, maybe while they're typing, you could think about some of the ways that shows up for you.
Yeah, I was just thinking, normally I don't ask myself questions, it's more of accusations.
Oh.
And for me, it's a whole lot of shoulding. I should have the time, I should have the energy.
Yeah.
That's how it shows up for me.
Okay. And so a lot of times what I'll hear people asking when they are in the belief mode of those lies is, there's just not enough time to do it, so I wonder if I even should be doing this. I wonder if I am, I wonder if there's something wrong with me. Why can't I get this done? Why is this always so hard? Why do I constantly fall behind? And so when you're asking yourself those questions, it's very difficult to make good decisions about what to do next. It keeps you in sort of a negative loop. And so to that point, what kind of decisions you make when you believe those three lies are very important. So as a former social education director for a Welfare to Work program, one of the things that I began to notice with the clients that I served in this program was that at the beginning of the month, when they had received their benefits and they were feeling much more confident, much more flush, much more at ease, they had a different level of attention and they had a different level of participation. As the month went on and resources became more strained, I could begin to see the tension rising, the attention span shrinking, the resistance growing, and by the end of the month, it was very clear that they were in a crisis mode of trying to figure out how to stretch the resources that maybe they had already expended for the month. And it really helped me as a facilitator and as an instructor to understand how to approach the education and the programming during those times. So understanding that their mindset was having an impact on their ability to learn gave me an opportunity to really get clear about how do I help them think differently about the situation that they're in so that they can focus and take action to help them move forward. And that is the power of getting clear about how, when you believe those lies, how it can show up and impact your questions and your decisions. And so it's time for a different way of reacting and responding to these three lies. And if you're ready, then we will begin to explore those. So you have a worksheet that I've provided for you that can serve as a dashboard after this training. And if you're not in a position to be able to use this worksheet to follow along, no worries, you can go back. I'll make sure that Sandy and her team have the PowerPoint presentation. But this can just be something that you can keep at your desk, keep close by, so that when you begin to feel that tendency to believe those lies, that you can look at what else is also possible. So this is the handout that you can use as we move through the remainder of the webinar. So let's focus on lie number one. I don't have enough time. How many of you feel as though you don't have enough time? You can type in the question box. Sandy, do you hear yourself saying that a few times a day?
Sorry, I was just thinking I didn't have time to answer that.
I can always count on you for a good laugh, girl. So most of us at some point have that feeling. And the truth is that that's the way it feels, but it's not necessarily the truth. And so I want to introduce some elevated questions that you can ask yourself when you're feeling the pinch of I don't have enough time. So there are two questions here that I've listed as the elevated question. And the first one is, what can I do now to move one of my goals or projects forward? And then the other one is, what could I do with the 20 minutes I have available to me that would have the most value? So the benefit of asking these two questions instead of how in the heck am I going to get all of this stuff done and what is going to have to get shoved to the side in order for me to get this done, these questions are what I like to call elevated questions. Because when you answer them, they put you in a position of taking action and moving forward as opposed to slipping further back into the mindset of lack, that you don't have enough. And so you may decide that there is a different elevated question for you that may work better. And if that's so, then I would invite you to think about that and capture that and write that down. One of the other questions that I like to ask in this portion is, what are my most important priorities today or right now or in the next hour? Really helping to think about priorities as a way of shifting. And then another one of my favorite methods also came from my role as executive director in the financial capability world. Was called the PERK method. And so originally this was used as a budgeting tool and to help people who were trying to budget. It's called the PERK method. What can I postpone, reduce, and or eliminate? And what do I need to keep? This sounds a little bit like Marie Kondo, who's sweeping the nation with her "Does it spark joy?" But what can you postpone? What can you reduce? What can you eliminate? And what do you need to keep? And if you can generate a list of that, then it's possible that you could take the next steps in doing something that can be really helpful. Now, the next piece is the mind over matter mantra. And so this is a tool to use when you have the negative tape running in your head about time. Then what you can do is look at these mantras and replace the negative tape with these. And so when you say to yourself, I have time to do what must be done, I have all the time I need to do what matters most, you put yourself in a mindset of, it's possible for me to do what needs to be done. And as Henry Ford said so long ago, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. So how does the idea of introducing elevated questions and mind over matter mantras help you think differently about the way you talk to yourself throughout the day, about the different assignments and different roles that you play? Do you believe that these are the kinds of tools that can help you shift into a more positive mindset and allow you to take steps to move forward? Just give me a little answer in the question box there and let me know if these tools are resonating for you.
While people are doing that, I'll jump in and share that I find for myself, so many things become habit. You know, the questions that I ask myself or the accusations or those things that I say, it just becomes habit. And it's asking elevated questions requires me to interrupt that habitual thinking, to think about it a little bit differently. And that is not an easy thing to do, to catch yourself in the middle of that when you're thinking, well, we've always done that event this way.
Right.
To kind of go like, okay, hang on. Just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean we necessarily need to keep doing it that way.
Right. Very good. Very good. Leah says, yes, thank you. All right. So lie number one, I don't have enough time. The elevated questions, really getting clear about what is the most important. What can I do now to move one of my goals or projects forward? What could I do with the 20 minutes I have available to me that would have the most value? And this is where my phone timer is my best friend. if I have an hour and I have a lot of things on my plate, I will set a timer for 12 minutes and pick one thing, and I will do as much as I can in that 12 minutes. And I'm often amazed at how much my brain enjoys having one thing to focus on instead of all of the things. And so that may be a tool that you find helpful to you as it relates to time management. All right, Sandy, let's move on to lie number 2. This is going to be one that resonates with you as a fundraising coach. Lie number 2, we don't have enough money. So Sandy, in your experience, how does this impact the organizations that you serve?
I'll tell you what I have seen a whole lot of that drives me absolutely crazy, and that is especially really small nonprofits, when they realize they have more to spend money on than they have money. So in other words, we don't have enough money. They immediately go to cut cost. They try to figure out where they can let something go. We're going to cut this cost. We're going to do without, instead of thinking, well, how can we raise more? That drives me nuts. That drives me crazy.
So isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful? That's really great. And it moves beautifully into the elevated questions here for this section. So what can we do with what we have now? Is a question that is not rooted in lack, but rooted in reality. And then what could I do to generate additional funding is the question that Sandy is begging people to ask. That it's not about now we have to cut everything, but it's probably easier, believe it or not, to raise money than it is to spend all of your time, energy, and effort cutting back things and then dealing with the impact of that. There are certainly times where you have to make tough decisions, but getting into the appropriate mindset before you begin to make those decisions is really critical. And so what I would invite you to do is to play with an exercise that I like to call 10 questions and 10 ideas. I use this a lot with boards that I work with who are stuck and who maybe have gotten into some habitual thinking around the way they operate as a group, the way they raise money, the way they do events. And so what I like to do is give people 20 minutes and get them up into several groups around the room and invite them to generate a list of 10 questions and 10 ideas relative to a specific topic. So to use fundraising as an example, or an event as an example, what you might consider doing is labeling the top of a flip chart pad to say our annual event. So what are 10 questions that you have? What are 10 questions maybe that your donors have, that your volunteers have, that your attendees might have? And so you can put on different hats and generate questions. And one of the things that does is gets you out of certainty and into curiosity. And we spoke about those at the beginning with the invitations. Be curious, not critical. It's so easy to get into a room to plan your annual event and talk about what went wrong last time, or pull out the files from last time and say, okay, last time we did this, and so we're just going to keep doing this, without getting curious about the questions that might be in the heads of all of the stakeholders associated with this event. What's possible? I'll give you a recent example of a group who set an aggressive fundraising goal for an event, and they based their budget and a lot of their decisions on that desired dollar amount outcome. They spent a great deal of time investing in some new tools and ways of making the event more efficient, more cost effective, and more profitable, and yet it didn't work. And at some point in the process, they forgot to ask the question, how do we need to adjust? What are we seeing is working, what's not working? And sometimes being able to stop even mid-planning as you move along, many times it's a year in the planning for these events, to stop and get curious from the perspective of the committee or the volunteer or the participant the donor, the sponsors, and generating some of those. And then once you generate the questions, it usually helps you come up with better ideas. Sandy, is that something you've ever used?
Actually, I have a couple of times when I've worked with organizations on capital campaigns. We have tried to put ourselves in the shoes of the donors and said, what do they want to know about this campaign?
Mm-hmm.
What questions might they have about the programs? What questions might they have about the need? And there is something magic about putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and trying to get inside their head to think about what might be crossing their mind. And what we did with all that information is we used it to guide what we put into the case statement that ultimately led to the success of that campaign.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Great way of using it. Questions really unlock something, and it's my go-to move when I'm stuck. What are the questions that I have about what I need to do and how to move forward? All right, so next we're going to move to the mind over matter mantra. We are standing in our own acre of diamonds. So I'll tell you, I'll give you a brief synopsis of the acre of diamonds story. If you haven't heard it, I'll be sure to send Sandy a link that she can send out to you. But essentially, we tend to reach way outside instead of looking at what is right there in front of us. And so often, we have people who know us, love us, and trust us, who want to do business with us, who want to work with us, who want to be part of the causes that we support, and yet we forget to ask them. We forget to engage them or involve them. And so one of the things that I like to relay is the story of we're standing in our own acre of diamonds. A gentleman was looking to be able to make money, and he wanted to become wealthy. He wanted to be successful. He moved and moved away and searched all over the world for these jewels, and it turned out that all of those jewels were right there, just underneath his property, underneath the first couple of layers, and he never even looked. And so I love that example. I had a coach a couple of years ago who asked me a really powerful question, and she said, what 20% of the work that you're doing is giving you 80% of the positive results you're getting? And I thought, well, it's taking really good care of my existing clients. And then she asked the question, what 20% of the work that you're doing is giving you 80% of the negative results you're getting? And I had to laugh, because it was creating new stuff for new people to deliver in new ways and new markets, and that was not giving me great results. Taking really good care of the people who were in my circle is how I get most of my business. And so I just want to encourage you, when you are thinking and believing we don't have enough money, that there is also the truth that you're standing in your own acre of diamonds. Everything you need to become the organization and have the kind of impact you have is there. And when you can believe that, you can begin to see the possibilities that fall in with that. And again, as Henry Ford says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Your mental state has so much to do with your success. And now we speak to the power of energy. I don't have the energy. And I know that sometimes we can really believe that's true, that we are just wiped out, exhausted, burned out, tired of looking at screens, not getting enough fresh air. And what I want to help you shift into is getting a little bit more accountable and a little bit more responsible for your own energy. So asking the question, what is draining my energy? Asking the question, what could I do to refresh and recharge myself? And there are a couple of really powerful things that you can do. And for those of you who are not driving, who are sitting comfortably someplace where you might be able to participate in this, then I would invite you to do so. But I want you to really embrace the power of the pause, taking a breath, taking 5 minutes and breathing slowly in and out. We tend to breathe very shallowly as we sit at our desk, kind of hunched over or in whatever position we're in. And so I just want to invite you to sit back, sit up straight, kind of get to a place where you're feeling, maybe you've got your feet on the floor and feeling fully grounded, putting your hands on your legs and getting comfortable, and just taking 3 long, slow, deep, deliberate breaths. I already feel a little bit better. Sandy, did you breathe with me?
Absolutely. I'm always up for a chance to get centered with some good deep breaths.
And another thing that you might consider doing is putting your hand on your heart. I was listening to a podcast the other day. This is a meditation move that I usually do when I'm meditating, but a woman by the name of Marcy Shimhoff, who wrote a book called Happy for No Reason, talked about the science that says when you put your hands on your heart, that you are actually increasing the flow of oxytocin, feel-good chemical, through your body. And that when you do this and you breathe slowly and deliberately and then begin to visualize breathing through your heart, inhaling from your heart, exhaling from your heart, and spending a few moments in that space, that you can really shift the energy that you have. And a lot of times when I am working with a group and facilitating all day, I'm not going to have time necessarily in the middle to do that. But if I go to the restroom, that's a time when I can do that too, right? Just as you're sitting there, you can put your hand on your heart, take a few long, slow, deep breaths, and center yourself, and come back out refreshed and ready to go. And also, for those of you who may be sensitive to energy, one of the things that you may notice is as you're working with your volunteers or your clients or your board or other people, you could be picking up on their energy too. And so managing and protecting your own energy could be as simple as going to the restroom and washing your hands, and imagining that any energy that doesn't belong to you is just kind of going down the drain. And maybe even sprinkling some water kind of around you to just sort of clear your energy field. But it does make a tremendous difference. And those of us who are heart-centered and empathetic and open to these things can sometimes be overwhelmed by the amount of energy that other people are bringing to the work. Stretching is also really powerful and good for you. Drinking a lot of water, a little bit of movement, closing your eyes, especially as much as we're looking at screens. Being able to give your eyes a momentary rest is really important. Doing work that doesn't involve the computer, closing it, and not being on your phone can really be helpful too. So, and music for me is a real game changer. I was listening to some fun music in here today as I was getting ready for the webinar, and it's a rainy day here, and just wanted to really shift the energy in the space, and that does it for me. So when you believe the lie, I don't have the energy, it makes it difficult for you to feel like taking on things. And what I want to ask you is, how can you elevate the questions you're asking? What is draining my energy? What can I do to refresh and recharge? And then how can I embrace the power of the pause? And the mind over matter mantra for this is, and if you want to say this with me, or kind of do the hands-on heart and recite that's fun too. But I am rested, I am focused, I am prepared, and I am energized. And I believe that when you can give yourself a little bit of a pep talk, it makes a big difference. So when you believe that you are rested and focused and prepared and energized, you can tackle what's in front of you in a different way than if you believe you don't have the energy to do it. And what I want to tell you is that the truth is you do have enough time. You do have enough money. And you do have enough energy to do the work that you are meant to do in this world. And all you have to do is believe that and really get clear at doing the mindset work it takes in order for you to show up and ask the questions that are going to help you move forward and leverage the mantras and that are going to allow you to shift into a neutral or positive mindset and then be able to take action. And one of the questions that I love, two questions here actually, what if it's possible? So when you're in a meeting or in a situation with other colleagues or volunteers or people who may be resisting or creating stagnant situation, not moving the situation forward, you could ask the question, what if it's possible we could try something different? What if it's possible we could look at our donor list a little differently than we have before and segment it differently? What if it's possible for us to not do an annual event? And when you ask the question, what if it's possible, it tends to take a little of the sting out of, I don't think we ought to do an annual event anymore, right? So that creates a completely different kind of energy in a boardroom or in a staff meeting. But if you start with, what if it's possible that we could do something besides an annual event this year to generate that amount of income? What would that look like? The magic question that I love to introduce to people is, what would it look like if it worked? And it's a magic question because of two reasons. One, it opens you up to solution. And two, it helps turn a negative conversation or a negative situation into something different. I got this from a boss when I worked at the dental school at University of Louisville while I was getting my undergraduate degree. I worked for the clinical dean. And our job, my job, was to protect her from every angry faculty, staff, student, and patient that came into the building. They wanted to come into the office and see the dean. And it was my job to parse that out, triage that, and make sure that the only people who got to see the dean were the people who really needed to get in and see the dean. And so I was busy. It was it was very difficult for me to do some of the other work that I had to do and manage this sort of constant open door of people. And so I would find myself frequently frustrated. And she introduced this question to me. She said, Whitney, come on in and have a seat. Tell me, what would it look like if it worked? And we had the most powerful conversation. She allowed me to really explain where I was coming from and how I felt, and it turned into a solution-focused conversation instead of a gripe fest. And it's a question that continues to bear fruit and be a real gift in my life. And I hope that you will find that it can be a real gift in your life as well. And the mantra is, I have everything I need to make a difference in the world. You know, last night I was at the first meeting of a new book club that I'm a part of. And it's an extraordinary group of women, and we're all sitting around there. We all do very different things. And but as we shared and talked about the book and talked about the themes in the book, before we left, there were so many like, I'll call you about coffee for this, and yes, I can help you with that. And just the sharing and the vulnerability and the being willing to ask for what you need and have conversations and get curious. People were able to find ways to support and help each other. And I believe that in the people that surround your nonprofit, the people who you work with, the volunteers, your board members, the donors and funders, and the community, the clients, you have everything you need in that group to make a difference in the world. If you'll only believe that and only keep focused on mastering your mindset so that you can continue to make a difference in the world. And Sandy, that's it for me. I am so honored to be a part of this group and am happy to answer questions or provide any kind of coaching on specific situations that are coming up. I know we have about 15 more minutes that we can do that with, or if you have any specific questions you'd like to ask as it relates to mindset and some of these questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you as well.
Well, so first, let me say thank you for being here and bringing this. I think this is really good, and I know that I'm very used to webinars that are moving really fast and full of information, and I love that in this one you just created space for us to think and really dig into these questions. And I think honestly, none of us have enough of that kind of thing in our lives. We all need a little more space just to stop and think. So I appreciate that you bring that to the table and give us that gift today. You know, I think there's so many places where we can talk about how this shows up, especially for folks who are founders or those who are trying to build an organization. There's like 15 different directions we could go here with this. One that I see quite a lot is there's so much to do. There's so much to do. I'm thinking specifically about a client that I'm working with right now that it's an animal welfare group, and they just rented a space in a mall, and they've got opened an adoption center, and they're drowning. It's a great thing, and they're going to get more animals. They're already adopting more out, but they're drowning because there's so much to do. So that whole piece of there's not enough time is showing up loud and clear for them. And I love your idea of, like, let's just chunk it down and take some little steps. Because I know for myself, when I start feeling really pinched about time, there's something in my head that just shuts down. And all of a sudden, I can't even think straight. I can't do anything. But, you know, if I think, okay, what if I take 15 minutes and let's just see what I can get done in 15 minutes. And then I start looking at everything differently. I start looking at all my projects differently. And I think, okay, well, here's one. I can get this done in 15 minutes, or I can get a start, or maybe if it's a bigger project. And actually, we were just talking about this in our office recently about how so many of us put projects on our to-do list instead of tasks. That's a whole other conversation. But I can look and say, okay, I can't update my whole website in 15 minutes, but I could think about the outcome that I want from a new website in 15 minutes. And that's a real different thing. So I really like that. And I think that does shift us into a totally different space and get us moving in the right direction with things that need to get done on our plate.
And managing expectations too, Sandy, right? So just because somebody said we need to do all of these things in 4 days doesn't mean that it's actually possible to get it done in 4 days.
That is true.
I mean, so sometimes it's pushing back. I know early in my career, and really even depending on the client, I have one client in particular that has a very aggressive pace as a culture, you know, in their organization, and their clients, their staff is always feeling it. That's the one thing that I hear mostly from the staff that I'm working with is just this unrelenting pace. And so, you know, my counsel to them is really around pushing back and focusing on priorities and allocating time and protecting time, right? So getting clear and being able to say, yes, I understand that's the goal, and here's the time that we have available, and here are the resources that we have available, and so here's what I'm recommending. I think is a reasonable, assertive structure. What else do I need to reprioritize in order to make this happen? Or do I have your permission to just drop everything else and focus only on this? Maybe that's the question. But I think we do a lot of saying yes, and then we're trying to figure it out on the back end, and that's what really leads us to feeling that pinch.
Absolutely. I think, and you'll get a kick out of this, so everybody who's listening, Whitney and I are both Southern girls. I'm in Tennessee. She's Kentucky-ish. I know, right? We can sit on those long eyes. We are, I don't know where we learn this when we're growing up, that we don't say no. if somebody asks us to do something, we just automatically say yes, and we try to accommodate. And I don't know if that's a Southern thing or if that shows up in a lot of places, but I see that a lot, especially if you're a director, if you're an executive director and you're bored. If somebody on your board says, hey, can you take care of blah, 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 we just immediately go to yes. We don't even think about saying to the board member, I'm not sure that's a great use of my time. Like, we don't ever hit the pause button long enough to say, wait a minute. We think, oh, my board, they're my boss, so I'm just going to automatically say yes to everything. Now, maybe if you're a founder and you're brand new and your board members are still looking to you, they don't know what their job is and they're waiting on you to tell them what to do. You may not be dealing with that, but maybe it's a donor or a volunteer. There's somebody else that just pops up. And I love that you bring this point up, that we don't have to necessarily say yes to everything that comes across our email, our desk, our voicemail, or wherever it comes.
So true. And I do want your folks to remember that I am a resource. If you want to tag me in the group and ask me any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I'm always happy to entertain questions, or my phone number's there, my email's there, and always happy to work with folks who are doing the good work to make a difference in the world.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that. All right, so does anybody have a question? If you have anything that you're feeling stuck around that you'd like some coaching on, do you have an issue where you're struggling to tell somebody no, you're struggling with, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough energy, and this is your chance. So you've got a master coach ready to help you with that. If you want to take advantage of it, now's the time. Go ahead and type your question in. And then if you're like me, sometimes I'm on a webinar like this and I'm like, this is all just great and I can't think of what my question is, but I'm sure I've got some. I tend to be a little slow processing things sometimes. So if you think of it in the morning when you're brushing your teeth, you can always go to the Facebook group and ask that question. And we can tag Whitney and she can come along and help you with that.
Absolutely.
Really what I want everybody to get is you are not in this alone. We are here. You have a whole community of people here in Project SmartSprout and a variety of coaches who can help you with this. You don't have to struggle alone. You don't have to feel like you're the only one dealing with this. Nobody else knows what you're talking about. We're here to support you and be your cheerleaders and to be your base camp, so to speak. So you've always got a place to come back to where you're going to get the support and the encouragement that you need. And I want you to remember that. I think it's important. I think there's been a lot of times for me that's kind of support would have been invaluable. And that's part of why I want to create that in SmartSprout, because I don't want anybody feeling like they're the Lone Ranger, because you're not. You don't have to be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it doesn't look like anybody has any questions. So we're just going to wrap up a little early today. I think everybody will enjoy having a few extra minutes to go get something else done. So
thank you so much for the invitation, Sandy. It's always a pleasure. I love what you're up to in the world and look forward to continuing to be connected and be of service.
Well, you're most welcome, and I'm so delighted to have you on our team. And I think the world of you, and I love being your wing girl on these.
I love it.
All right.
The two of us will figure out how to get those slides to move. All right. Have a weekend, everybody. Take good care.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again next time.
Bye-bye.